Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Friday, March the 14th. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in here before we get started. Hope everybody's having a good day, getting ready for the weekend. Of course, we'll have quite a bit to talk about tonight on the show. It looks like we have a few people in here, so I guess I'll just go ahead and get right into talk about what we're going to get into tonight. So I've got actually four stories, all from MeTV Tunes. We've got you guys, if those of you who watch regularly, we did, a few weeks ago we did a couple of stories on Joseph Barbera of Hanna-Barbera fame. Well, tonight we have a couple of stories we're going to be looking at in regards to Bill Hanna, the other half of the Hanna-Barbera. Also, we've got story on the Roadrunner's voice, Paul Julian, as well as Huckleberry Hound. After that, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap-up, look back to last night's Impact, get all caught up on all the latest news from WWE, AEW, TNA, and Ring of Honor. As of course, as I said, we'll look back to last night's Impact, the go home Impact before tonight's Sacrifice pay per view. We'll be looking at last night's Ring of Honor. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown as WWE continues to march its way towards WrestleMania, as well look ahead to tomorrow night's AEW Collision, as you got the other half of the preliminaries into the International Four-Way that's coming up this Wednesday. Then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead? I guess we can go ahead and jump right into it since we had some. Actually, let me just do one more quick little thing here before I get going here, just to see if we can stir up some more visitors. Let's see now. Okay. David wouldn't be into that much. All right. So, anyways, let's get into this. Let's get into material here. All right. So, with that being said, let's get going here. The first article we're going to look at here is the one about Bill Hanna here. William Hanna, aka of Hanna-Barbera fame. Now, according to this title here, Bill Hanna almost worked for Disney. He would have never met Joe Barbera. So, talking about turns, forks in the road of your life and career. Depending upon what choices we make here, right? All right, so let's see what they're talking about here. And as always, guys, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, let's get going here. When we study cartoon history, we encounter lots of quote unquote what if scenarios. Like, what if Bill Hanna worked for Disney? What if he had never made it to MGM and met Joe Barbera? Bill Hanna, co-creator of the great Hanna-Barbera empire, who made his mark on cartoon history through Tom and Jerry, Yogi Bear, the Flintstones, and countless other cartoons he created with Joe Barbera, nearly left his first animation job to work for Disney. In the 1930s, Hanna was in his early 20s and working for Harmonizing Studios, creating Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons for Leon Schlesinger and Warner Brothers. In his third year, he was thriving as the leader of the inking and painting department. Hanna was a perfect fit for the fledgling studio because he was reliable in all elements of cartoon production. He could draw, write short scripts, and record songs, and even voice act on occasion. Now, in the early days, in the golden age of cartoons, we saw this a lot. You didn't have a lot of, in the 30s there, you did not have a lot of established voice actors. Like guys like Mel Blanc wouldn't come along until the 40s. Okay. Even though by the mid 30s, of course, Paramount had their kind of, group, had their group of like Billy Costello, William Pennell, Mae Quetzal, Jack Mercer, Jackson Beck, Gus Wiki, Bonnie Poe and Margie Hines. So, but in these earlier days, of course, many guys like Tex Avery, William Hanna, I think maybe even Joe Barbera did it a little bit too. I know Walter Lantz did it. Some of these guys who are like directors and producers and all that, they would actually, lend their own voices to the characters from time to time as well. So just an interesting little tidbit there. Anyways. All right. So with that being said, anyways, as we continue on here, let's see. He was, he was willing and able to do anything to complete animation on time, making him indispensable to Hugh Harman and Rudolph Ising. Hanna even considered the two animators to be his close friends, and Hanna mentions this many times in his memoir. He loved making cartoons and working there. So think about this. So Harmonizing was a cartoon production house originally in the early 30s. Worked for Warner Brothers before moving on to MGM and taking Bosco with them to work on the Happy Harmonies. And with them mentoring, and with them, of course, mentoring William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, that led us to get Hanna-Barbera in the late 50s there. So kind of interesting how you see that flow of time, that flow of continuity right there. Let's see. He loved making cartoons and work. Okay. He was fueled by creative passion and said of his time working for them, quote, I had found my life's calling at last. Every aspect of animation production enthralled me and seemed to provide me with a satisfying channel for creative passion. I decided I would be blissfully happy if I could make cartoons for the rest of my life. One day, a new hire joined Hannah's department, Irene Hamilton, Ising's girlfriend. Hanna recalled for the moment in his memoir, A Cast of Friends, quote, this was fine with me until I learned that she had been given a starting salary of $60 a week, unquote. After working at the studio for 3 years, Hanna's weekly salary was $37. $37.50. Wow. So this new hire comes on and gets more than he does. That's kind of poopy. In today's money, Hamilton would be making about $54,000 a year, while Hannah would be making about $34,000 a year. This was obviously very unfair and a blow to Hannah, who said, quote, "The blatant injustice of this arrangement raised my blood to the boiling point. After all, I reasoned, I had remained as the head of that department loyally committed to Hugh and Rudy for a long time, had worked my way up to a level where I felt I was performing many valuable production tasks. Sheer necessity and my own self-respect demanded that I resolve the issues of just dues." Unquote. Hannah went to the only real competitor to Harmon and Ising, Walt Disney. So he went to Disney to try to see if what he might be willing to pay him, to see if he could leverage that back on Harmon and Ising. Hannah went to the Disney studio, applied for a job, and met with Walt Disney. It was the first time the two animators met, and after listening to Hannah explain the situation, Disney informed him that the role was already filled, instructed him to go back to Ising. After the meeting, Hannah went to Harmon Ising's studio and was met by Ising, who told him he was getting a raise to $60 a week. Reflecting on the quick turnaround, Hannah said, quote, "I've always believed that Disney must have picked up the telephone and called Rudolph Ising after I left his office," unquote. This restored Hannah's loyalty to Harmon and Ising, which would later rely on. So in a way, that's kind of interesting. When you hear about how cutthroat some of these companies can sometimes be, and how shortchanging they can be, I mean, this would have been an opportunity for Disney to pick up a talented animator right there, but instead he sent him back to Harmon Ising, and even set it up to where he got his pay raise. Now, again, I know that from what I remember, I think Harmon Ising did work with Walt Disney back in the 20s. They may have had some previous history together, and maybe out of that friendship decided to kind of try to help smooth things over by as Bill Hannah said there, calling up Rudolph and saying, "Hey, look, your guy's not happy here. He just came to me looking for a job. You might want to pay him a little bit more if you want to keep him." Because could you imagine the possibility if, let's say, Hannah, if that situation had not got resolved? That would have been something very interesting, to say the least. If Disney decided not to pick him up, could have gone to Charles Mintz or to Walter Lantz, who may not have had the same scruples as Walt Disney did, right? In 1933, Leon Schlesinger ended his contract with Harmon and Ising to start his own animation studio. Like a hungry coyote, Schlesinger descended on the Harmon Ising animators and offered them higher-paying jobs. One of the few employees who never left their side was Bill Hannah, who happily took on freelance commercial jobs while Harmon and Ising searched for a new studio home. When they landed at MGM, Hannah was rewarded with a new job and opportunities to start developing and directing his own cartoons. But more importantly, MGM is where he would meet his lifelong collaborator, Joe Barbera. Now, MGM was a place where the two of them brought us, Tom and Jerry, right? They were the one before starting their own studios. They actually helped create Tom Cat and Jerry Mouse for MGM. It's fun to imagine how different Disney animations would have been with Bill Hanna on board, but imagining a world where Hanna-Barbera never meet is like imagining Tom without Jerry. Well, if you think about it, by extension, that would have been true too, right? Because that would have been true as well. Because had he went to Disney, we would probably also not have gotten Tom and Jerry. Aside from Hanna-Barbera Productions and all the characters they gave us over the years, we probably would not have had Tom and Jerry either. So that's something to really think about as well. Anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next piece of each history. Let me just, before I do that, or next article rather, see if there is a way I can draw in any more people. Guess not. All right, so now let's get back and let's look ahead to. Let's move on to the next article we're going to do here. Now this one's interesting, and I think this has just been beep beep. Background artist Paul Julian and Roadrunner's iconic catchphrase. Scripts say, quote unquote, beep beep, but Roadrunner actually says, you meep, you meep. March article came out March 13th at 8 a.m. by MTV Toon staff. All right, so with just 2 syllables, the Looney Tunes character Roadrunner sprinted into the hearts of the cartoon viewing public. Roadrunner was the prey, but never the victim, effortlessly evading wild Ethelbert Coyote over and over again. Aided by the poor design of many an Acme product, Roadrunner relies on only his speed and natural guile to outmaneuver the inept predator. The beloved speedster is known for uttering the closest thing to dialogue in any of those tunes. Beep, beep. That's all it took to endear Roadrunner to the audience. While Wall-E wasn't without his fans, there's such catharsis in watching Roadrunner win, dooming Wile E. Coyote to an eternity of suffering like a hand-drawn Sisyphus. But what is the origin story of quote unquote beep beep? Usually Looney Tunes voices are cut and dried. They're typically all Mel Blanc. It cannot be overstated just how responsible Blanc is for much of what we associate with these familiar cartoons. For 61 years, the man of 1,000 voices provided the mannerisms of Porky Pig, Daffy Duck, Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, Tweety, and others. So, case closed. Blanc did the beep beep, right? Not so fast there, Roadrunner. The real story starts with background artist Paul Julian. Born in Illinois in 1914, Julian originally honed his trade as a mural artist, with his work displayed publicly in several prominent locations. Notably, a mural of his from 1942, is still a feature of Upland Elementary School in Upland, California. Wow! After all that, he was like 28 years old when he did that. That was 1942. That was 83 years ago. So you go to Upland, California. You go to um, Upland Elementary School, and you can see that mural. In addition, a Julian mural was part of the interior of the post office in Fullerton, California. It was out west where Paul Julian first came to work for Warner Brothers as a background artist. Among the shorts he contributed to was Hair Trigger, the 1945 debut of Bugs Bunny's short-tempered nemesis, Yosemite Sam. Later, though, it was his voice talents that attracted Roadrunner creator Mike Maltese's attention. Because Paul Julian was a background artist, he often left work carrying heavy, oversized wooden background palettes. One particular day, Julian was struggling through a crowd, cargo in hand, when Maltese overheard a sound that would change cartoon history. Instead of a "pardon me," quote unquote, or an "oops, excuse me," quote unquote, Julian navigated the crowd with a beep beep, smaller quote, or to hear the artist himself do it, it was actually closer to meep meep, quote unquote. Maltese decided this was the perfect sound for his Roadrunner cartoon, and sound engineer Trig Brown recorded his voice. However, fans will notice that Julian went uncredited for his contribution. And back in the golden age, that happened with a lot of even some of the more well-known voice actors were not regularly credited. I think Mel Blanc was one of the few who was actually regularly credited during the golden age. This was the result of two separate stipulations. First, Julian was a background artist and not a performer, so he was never a member of the Screen Actors Guild. Second, Mel Blanc's contract specified that Looney Tunes and Merry Melodies cartoons would include the sole credit, quote, voice characterizations by Mel Blanc. Those recordings of Paul Julian's voice, though they remain uncredited to him, are still in use to this day. Meep, meep, beep, beep, meep, meep. So, anyways, there we go with that article. Now we're going to get ready to move on to the next one. This one should be interesting. It's good at times to just have articles where there's not a lot of drama. There's just sometimes just looking back to some of the stuff you grew up on, and learning a little bit about some of the some of these little intricacies, like who actually voiced Roadrunner, let's say, or some looking at some of the what if situations that happened. I know a lot of times when we cover some articles, we cover, there's a lot of drama, especially when we cover stuff going on in today's niche world. But it's fun to go back and look at some of these more, positive stories, right? Some of these more interesting positive stories. And as I said, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people on here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions the best of my ability. Of course, feel free to also, as we're looking back on whether it's William Hanna or Paul Julian or Huckleberry Hound or what have you, feel free to share any memories you might want to share, and we can talk about those too. So with that being said, let's continue on here. Why was Huckleberry Hound always singing that song? Oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine. Article March 14th at 10:31 a.m. by me, DVD, and staff. All right, so if you know one thing about Huckleberry Hound is that he likes to sing "Oh My Darling Clementine," quote unquote. The song itself originates from the 1880s, a classic but tragic song about a woman named Clementine falling into a river and drowning. The song was likely chosen for the Huckleberry Hound show because it is so old that any copyright expired, but one short showed a sadder reason um, behind Huck's appreciation for the song. In the 1960 short, quote, Legion Bound Hound, unquote, Huck serves as a sergeant in the Foreign Legion, leading Company B. While showing the audience around the desert fort, Huck reminisces on how soldiers joined the Foreign Legion because, quote, after all, they come here to forget, just like me. I come here to forget my fiancée. What's her name? Unquote. Huck rejoices in having finally forgotten that girl who broke his heart and decides to listen to some music. So, all right. Continuing on here. He turns on the record player and the song, quote, Oh my darling Clementine, unquote, plays. He immediately turns it off. Clementine is the name of his ex-fiancée. Quote, Legion Bound Hound, unquote, is the 40th Huckleberry Hound short and approximately the 40th time the audience has heard the song. This moment was a little Easter egg to explain to the audience that Huck didn't just enjoy the song, but had a deeper meaning for him. But it's not all sad. Huckleberry Hound eventually got his happily ever after in The Good, the Bad, and the Huckleberry Hound, where he fell in love and married Desert Flower, the young lady dog who saved Huck after a crash landing and helped him recover from amnesia. Even though he continued singing the song after meeting Desert Flower, we can only hope the amnesia helped Huckleberry Hound forget the real Clementine. Alrighty then, so there we go with that one. So, anyways, as we're coming up, so we got one more article we're going to go through, then we'll probably move on to the wrestling wrap up. Let's see. We got through like 4 stories tonight, and the second one talking about Bill Hanna. Let's see what more we can learn about what the other half of the Hanna-Barbera Productions team. We learned quite a bit about Joe Barbera a few weeks ago. Now let's learn a little bit more about his partner in crime, Bill Hanna here. Bill Hanna was the ultimate Boy Scout. All those awards, and he was most proud of being an Eagle Scout. Article published today, March 14th at 3:03 p.m. by me, TV, and staff. So let's see what more can be said here. The more you watch cartoons, the more you realize that there are a lot of Boy Scouts in the Hanna-Barbera universe. Yeah, you see right there. In Wacky Races, Dick Dastardly, Muttley, and the Ant Hill Mob go undercover as Wood Scouts to evade law enforcement. In the Secret Squirrel Show, the Winsome Witch accidentally shrinks some Boy Scouts the size of bugs. In The Jetsons, George chaperones Elroy's Boy Scout troop on a camping trip to the moon. Last but not least, The Flintstones has two scouting episodes, one of which Fred and Barney become scoutmasters of a local troop. Elsewhere you look in Hanna-Barbera universe, there are Boy Scouts. Bill Hanna considered himself to be a personal ambassador of the Boy Scouts of America. Hanna joined the Boy Scouts at the age of 12 and worked his way up to the coveted status of Eagle Scout. In his autobiography, A Cast of Friends, Hanna said, quote, "The ultimate goal most scouts endeavor to achieve through the process of promotions and earning merit badges, of course, is to be made an Eagle Scout. Parentheses, my friends and I all became Eagle Scouts, and the pride of that award, like our friendships, has lasted throughout our lives. For over 6 decades, many of the original members of Boy Scout Troop 2 of the Watts District continued to meet every year for a reunion, and I have attended nearly every gathering," unquote. Let's see if anything. All right, let's see. Oh. While it is heartwarming that Hanna's Boy Scout troop held reunions for over 60 years, his commitment to scouting went much further than just meeting up with his friends. He also served as scoutmaster to his son's troop and continued supporting the organization financially, in addition to featuring Boy Scouts in cartoons whenever he could. For Hanna, the Boy Scout law became a creed he took to heart for the rest of his life. Quote, the universally known Boy Scout motto, be prepared, quote unquote, was the central theme of the organization regarding the life lessons it provided boys. Preparation extended beyond merely ensuring that we had our canteens and pocket knives available for camping trips. What the Boy Scouts endeavored to teach us were many of the character lessons regarding personal honor and service to others that prepared us to live sound, healthy, and constructive lives. The Scout Oath was, in my eyes, a kind of bond between parents and their kids. In many ways, it was an equalizing pledge that challenged any generation to simply individually do the very best they could and to respect each other, unquote. We may never know how many children were encouraged to become scouts by watching Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but audiences were likely inspired by the Hanna-Barbera characters who lived like Scout Law, like Barney Rubble, Fred Jones, and Elroy Jetson. Hmm. Mm-hmm. Hanna was so committed to scouting that he considered it greater than any of his professional achievements. Quote, as proud and grateful as V and I are for the wonderful awards, V might be his wife, I guess, including the later Emmys. One of the most cherished honors is the Americanism Award that was presented to me in 1991 by the Great Western Council of the Boy Scouts of America. Mother and Dad would have been proud, unquote. As a man with a record number of Emmy and Oscar winning cartoons, in addition to being the co-creator of some of the most successful cartoon franchises of all time, being recognized by the Boy Scouts of America was his proudest achievement. So, kind of cool story. Again, a real nice positive swing of things tonight, huh? We went through quite a number of, positive profile pieces, which I'm happy to have done tonight. It just shows you it doesn't always have to be doom and gloom, and see who can see how many different ways you can like sit there and trash somebody, right? So that's at least all I got on the news side of things. So now why don't we go ahead and look go ahead and get caught up on all the let's go ahead and get into the wrestling wrap up here, as it were. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to last night's Ring of Honor show, see what happened on last night's Ring of Honor. As on last night's Ring of Honor, which was the 107th episode of Ring of Honor Club, coming from the Oakland Arena in Oakland, California, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. Show opened up with a tag team match in which the Spanish Announce Project of Angelico and Serpentico defeated CSJ and Alpha Zoe. Blake Christian defeated Titus Alexander in a one-on-one match. Layla Gray defeated Lady Frost. Kind of, I guess, from what I understand, from what little I've heard, maybe revitalizing her baddie gimmick. In an 8-man tag match, the Gates of Agony and Bishop Gonto Leona teamed up with Top Flight of Darius and Dante Martin to defeat the Frat House duo of Colt Carter and Preston Vance, premier athletes of Ari Davari and Tony Nese, with Jack Jameson and Mark Cerny in their corner. Ring of Honor television title #1 contender Dark Panther defeated Aaron Solo. Katsuyori Shibata defeated Lee Johnson. The main event saw in trios action Atlantis, Esfingo, and Mystico defeat Euphoria, Rocky Romero, and Valiente. So that all happened on Ring of Honor last night. Now I'm going to move ahead to TNA Impact on last night's Impact. The reason I chose to go with TNA second here, because it's going to lead in. Now, last night's TNA came from the Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, with Matthew Rainwell, Tom Hanahan, Ariana Grace, and Frankie Kazarian on commentary, as this was the go-home Impact before tonight's Sacrifice pay-per-view. Eddie Edwards in preparation for their 10-man tag tonight. 10-man tag tonight. Eddie Edwards defeated Leon Slater in a one-on-one match. Wes Lee defeated Laredo Kid. Zaya Brookside defeated Rosemary via DQ. JDC of the System defeated Cody Deaner. In a tag team match, in preparation for their individual singles matches, Cora Jade and Tessa Blanchard defeated TNA Knockouts champion Masha Slamovich and Lei Ying Lee. And then Joe Hendry defended the TNA World title twice, defeating Ryan Nemeth and then defeating Hammerstone in preparation for being part of the 10-man tag tonight. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's move ahead to tonight and what to look forward to on tonight's Sacrifice event. The countdown show, which is also happening on YouTube, I believe. The countdown to Sacrifice tonight on YouTube here with Matthew Rainwalt and Tom Hanahan, coming from the El Paso County Coliseum in El Paso, Texas. Saw the Aztec Warriors of Laredo and Octagon Jr. taking on First Class of AJ Francis and Izzy Navarro. In a street fight, Sammy Callahan takes on Mance Warner. Now, for the pay-per-view itself, the Sacrifice pay-per-view itself, coming up also tonight from the El Paso County Coliseum with Matthew Rainwalt and Tom Hanks to be shown on TNA Plus. Tessa Blanchard will be taking on Lei Ying Lee in a singles match. In a Lucha Rules 6-man tag match, Ace Austin teams with the Rascals of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz to take on Tyson DuPont, Tyreek Igwe, and Wes Lee from NXT. Frankie Kazarian takes on Steve Maclin in a singles match. In a 3-on-2 handicap match for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team title, Spitfire, Danny Luna, and Jody Threat take on the By Elegance duo of Ash and Heather By Elegance, along with their personal concierge. In a ladder match for the X Division title, Moose defends the X Division title against Jeff Hardy. Mustafa Ali, with the Great Hands and Tasha Steelz in his corner, takes on Mike Santana. In a match where the TNA Knockouts World title will be on the line, Masha Slamovich will be defending against NXT's Cora Jade. And in the aforementioned 10-man tag team cage match, the first cage match in, from what I understand, 5 or 6 years, I believe, will pit on one side TNA World Heavyweight Champion Joe Hendry, one half of TNA World Tag Team Champions Matt Hardy, along with Elijah, Leon Slater, and Nick Nemeth, to take on Eddie and Orlando Colon, the Colones, and the System's Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and JDC. So that's what you have to look forward to on tonight's Sacrifice pay-per-view. And then now, also looking to tonight, going to look at what's going to go down on tonight's SmackDown. Take a quick peek at what you can look forward to on tonight's SmackDown as they continue, of course, the build towards WrestleMania coming up next month on the weekend of the 25th, the 26th, I believe. WrestleMania 42 will actually take place on April 11th and 12th, actually. I thought it was going to be later than that, but I guess not. I'm sorry. No, that's next year. I'm sorry. Actually, WrestleMania 41 will be taking place on the 19th and 20th. So I got a little too far up there. But anyways, coming back to tonight's SmackDown. Apparently tonight's SmackDown is coming from Barcelona, Spain, as, of course, the Road to WrestleMania tour heading through Europe. Going on a European tour, heading into on the USA Network. You'll see in 6-man tag. Actually, that's right. They did mention that since it was over in Europe, it was actually going to be. It's already been on, I guess. But in the opening 6-man tag match, you see the former New Blood. You see Jacob Fatu, Solo Sikoa, and Tama Tonga taking on LA Knight, Braun Strowman, and Jimmy Uso. You see Charlotte Flair in preparation for, she'll get some work in for taking on B-Fab. Shinsuke Nakamura takes on Damian Priest. Randy Orton takes on Carmelo Hayes. Gunther makes an appearance on SmackDown to take on Axiom from NXT. One half of, so you have the WWE World Heavyweight Champion taking on the NXT Tag Champion there. In a match for the WWE Tag Team titles, Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano of DIY take on the Street Profits of Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford. So that's all we have for the WWE. Now, looking ahead to tomorrow night's Collision. As we look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision, what to look forward to there. Of course, the other half of the brackets to see who gets to take part in this Wednesday's four-way for the chance to challenge Kenny Omega for the international title will be taking place tomorrow night from Las Vegas, Nevada, at the Theater at Virgin Hotels in Las Vegas. Katsuya Shibata will be taking on Ricochet, and in a battle of the Marks, Mark Briscoe takes on Mark Davis to see who will advance to the Fatal 4-Way this coming Wednesday Dynamite, to see who will next challenge Kenny Omega, potentially at Dynasty coming up in a few weeks. And also on tomorrow night's Collision, FTR of Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler will be taking on the Undisputed Kingdom duo of Kyle Riley and Roderick Strong. Let's see, any other news to report? There has been some teases of course, Ray Fenix's debut coming to WWE, so there's that. But with that, I think I've hit up on everything that's happening. So, of course, we'll give you the results of the big stuff on Monday. Of course, SmackDown, the Sacrifice pay-per-view, and Collision on Monday. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to this day in each history. As today is Friday, March 14th, 2025. So let's take a look back at this date in each history. So let's see there. Alrighty then. So first off, I'm going to head back 40 years ago. And on this date, 40 years ago, back in 1985. Let's pull it up here. On this date in 1985, DC Comics released the 45th issue of Eric, Son of Thunder on this date 40 years ago. Sold for 75 cents, so you get this quarter for 3 quarters, basically. 32 pages. Let's see. She That Hath Wings was the name of the story, featuring Eric. The plotters being Roy Thomas and Danette Thomas. Scripting done by Randy and John Mark L'Officier. Penciled by Gerald Forton. Inked by Tony DeZuniga. Lettered by David Cody Weiss. And colored by Adrian Roy. So on this date, back in 1985, the 45th issue of Eric, Son of Thunder went on sale on newsstands from DC Comics. Now moving on to the next piece in each history. As we move ahead to 2010, on this date, 15 years ago today, 2010, Adam Pearce would defeat Blue Demon Jr. for the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. The same Adam Pearce who is currently the Raw General Manager in the WWE. So on this date, 15 years ago today, Adam Pearce defeated Blue Demon Jr. to become the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, this would eventually lead to a classic rivalry in around 2011 and 12 with Colt Cabana, where they kind of exchanged the titles back and forth a bit. So, 15 years ago today, Adam Pearce would win the NWA World Heavyweight title on this date 15 years ago today, back in 2010. All right, so with that being said now, let's move on to the next piece in each history. We move ahead to 2015. As on this date in 2015, Hasbro Studios would release the second series under the name Transformers Robots in Disguise on this date in 2015. So on this date, 10 years ago today, Hasbro Studios Transformers Robots in Disguise, the second series to bear that name after the 2001 series. This series was considered a sequel to Transformers Prime. So this was the sequel series to Transformers Prime. So on this date in 2015, Transformers Robots in Disguise, the 2015 series, the sequel to Transformers Prime, would premiere on Cartoon Network on this date 10 years ago. And now, 2015 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. As also on this date in 2015, over in Japan, in Japanese theaters, Kyoto Animation's Beyond the Boundary, I'll Be Here passed, and Toei Animation's Pretty Cure All-Stars Spring Carnival both premiered in Japanese theaters on this day 10 years ago. So 10 years ago today, Kyoto Animation's Beyond the Boundary, I'll Be Here passed, and Toei Animation's Pretty Cure All-Stars Spring Carnival both premiered on this date in Japan 10 years ago today. The Beyond the Boundary movie was a compilation of the the Beyond the Boundary television series. So there we go with that. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Hope everybody liked the content. We kind of went more positive tonight, just looking back on some old friends and stuff like that. Of course, we'll be back here Sunday, where Apex from Apex Comics will be my co-host. We'll be looking back to comics that went on sale in May of 1940. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Archie Comics. Be looking at, of course, Blue Ribbon Comics, Volume 1, Issue 5, as well as Zip and Pep Comics, Volume 1's Issue 6. Of course, we'll be looking at such features as The Shield, Steel Sterling, and Rangatang. Rangatang, of course, a kind of a precursor to Rex the Wonder Dog and Lassie, among others. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. And I will see you back here on Sunday. Bye.